how does a musical pair as brotherly as Hall and Oates fall out so badly that it leads to lawsuits and restraining orders? This truly is a sad story. You might have grown up listening to Hall & Oates, and to see how vicious their relationship is nowadays is truly heartbreaking. So, shall we? Hi, I'm Adam, welcome back to Music Mongoose. When it comes to iconic duos, Daryl Hall and John Oates are definitely up there amongst the greatest, like Bonnie and Clyde, Thelma and Louise, and Wallace and Gromit. The point is, they belong together, until recently sadly. The pop-rock duo formed in 1970 in the city of Philadelphia, a place famous for sandwiches and some stairs. The two attended Temple University and actually met at a Battle of the Bands type competition. They realized there that they liked the same music and quickly became best buddies. They even lived together in multiple places across Philly. In the early years, the pair were struggling to find their defining sound, bouncing around from folk to soul to rock to pop. It wasn't really until 1975 that the pair found their first notable success with their self-titled album, the first release on RCA Records after years at Atlantic Records. On that album was the song Sarah Smile. This would become their first top 10 hit in the US. Following on from the success of Sarah Smile, they released the album Bigger Than Both of Us later that year. The album's second single, Rich Girl, was a huge hit, and from there the band was set on the path of success. In fact, to this day, they are still the most successful musical duo of all time. 29 singles reached the top 40, with 6 of them reaching number 1 in the US. They've been inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and even have a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. That's a lot of fame. While the pair haven't released an album together since 2006, Home for Christmas, the pair still regularly performed and toured together while working on solo projects. The pair went on tour in 2019, their first tour of Latin America, visiting Argentina, Chile, and Brazil. Based on all of this, one would imagine that they were still best buddies, still very much able to work together and play music together. However, this buddy-like image would soon come crashing down. Perhaps the first hint of the relationship breaking down came in January 2020. Hall said that he was working on songs for the pair's next album, which would have been the first since 2006. However, a year later, after the pandemic had kicked in, he seemed a lot less sure about this new album. In a 2021 interview, he said things have changed. And obviously, to this day, no album has been released. Now, it's easy to think that this was because of the pandemic, but if you dig a little deeper and start to understand how their relationship was falling apart in the background, you might rethink that. In November 2023, Hall filed a lawsuit and a restraining order against Oates and his trust. The details of this lawsuit were initially confidential, but more details have since come to light. It turns out the crux of this lawsuit was that Oates wanted to sell his share of the Hall & Oates publishing rights. And Hall said, "Nah, my name is on those songs as well, and you're not doing anything without my consent." Oates was planning to sell his share to a company called Primary Wave Music. This company are becoming well known for purchasing the catalogue of artists, including that of Prince, Stevie Nicks, and Burt Bacharach. In his accusations, Hall calls Oates' intentions a completely clandestine and bad faith move, and that Oates and his trust had surreptitiously sought to sell half of the WOE assets without obtaining my written approval. WOE stands for Hall Oates Enterprises, by the way, it's their joint venture. Hall went on to say he had become deeply troubled by the deterioration of my relationship with and trust in John Oates. And the final cherry on this accusatory cake, he described it as the ultimate partnership betrayal. I mean, those are some incredibly strong words, aren't they? Considering how close of a partnership they've had for 50 years. What's more, Hall claims that Oates timed this whole situation to cause as much difficulty for him as possible, because Hall was about to head out on tour before all of this exploded. So in his words, this created tremendous upheaval, harm, and difficulty in my life. In his response, Oates said this, Over the years, Daryl has consistently and publicly been adamant about being perceived as an individual rather than as part of a duo or group. Thus, he has insisted on our being known as Daryl Hall and John Oates, rather than the more commonly known Hall and Oates. On this point, I agree. I now must act with truthfulness and make decisions that are right for myself, my family, and my artistic future. Now, the thing is, for Hall, this is all a point of principle. Hall morally doesn't believe in the concept of companies buying publishing rights. He even said that there was no amount of money that would compensate him for having to partner with such a company. Back in 2021, Hall said in an interview that he doesn't believe in the concept. He believes the idea of selling your publishing rights is misguided. As an artist, he believes this is all you have. We have seen in recent years different artists selling their publishing for obscene amounts of money. Bruce Springsteen is one example. The idea is companies like Primary Wave buy up the publishing rights and these vast catalogues of songs for eye-watering amounts of money, and then hopefully make a return on their investment through things like royalties and synchronization with TV shows and movies and things like that. Bob Dylan, another example, sold his 600-song catalogue to Universal, earning him a reported $300 million. I mean, I've got to be honest, I don't blame Oates for wanting a slice of that pie. That's a lot of money. But then again, I do also see it from Hall's perspective as well, because as he said, he was blindsided by the decision. Hall mentions that the pair had indeed already been involved in a less dramatic global divorce that brought their creative partnership to an end. But he claims he was blindsided with this decision to sell the share of WOE. And it is quite a unique case, isn't it? I mean, what are the rules when you're trying to sell a share in a writing partnership without the other person's consent? How does it all work? Well, to maybe answer that, let's look at Bella Figura Music, a relatively new company hopping on the trend of snapping up publishing rights. Alexi Corey Smith is the founder and CEO. And Alexi thinks that in these cases, when rights are split between multiple people, it is absolutely crucial to have good relationships with all the writers and all the people who hold those rights. Bella Figura Music owns the Guy Chambers catalogue, for example. Guy Chambers co-wrote Robbie Williams' biggest hits, and she says in this case, we have to work very closely with Williams' management, because all assets have approval, and sometimes there are discussions around requests. You want them approving things and you want them to collaborate with you, not work against you. So, Oates may well be able to sell his share of the publishing rights, but when it comes to Primary Wave actually wanting to use a song for a commercial or a TV show, they're gonna need the approval from Hall as well, which, to be honest, looks a bit unlikely, doesn't it? So I'd be surprised if Primary Wave even wanted to go ahead with the deal at this point. As a business decision, it doesn't make much sense, does it? Especially after the opposition shown by Hall. Yes, they could buy Oates' share of the publishing rights, but when it comes to actually making any money off the songs, well, that's another issue entirely. As it stands, the courts have temporarily blocked the sale to Primary Wave, and the case will have to go into arbitration before any sale can take place. So I'd cancel the super yacht if I were you, John. I'd love to know your thoughts on this one. Is it an ultimate betrayal, as Hall says, or is it just some good business thinking? And this whole story reminds me of another story about publishing rights and betrayal. And it's all about when Michael Jackson betrayed Paul McCartney and bought up the entire Beatles catalogue. You can click here to watch that video next.